What is going on with this real estate market? Hey, my name is Jake DeRosa with your favorite real estate team here in Sacramento, California, the DeRosa Real Estate Team. And today we have got an incredible guest, Ryan Lundquist. He's a local appraiser. Gosh, I've been working with him for years, and he is the best appraiser out here in this area, in this space. He's on television shows, he's on the news, and he is a man that knows his numbers. As always, if you like what we're bringing you, you like what we're sharing, please subscribe, like, and let's get into it. So we have got Ryan Lundquist. He is the most famous appraiser in Sacramento. He's the best of the best. Guy knows his numbers, his stats, everything you can think of. And I wanted you to join us today. I appreciate you coming on here and let's talk market. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit of information about yourself. That would be awesome.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and my name's Ryan Lundquist. I'm an appraiser. Been around for about 20 years. I love what I do on most days. And I love crunching the numbers because they tell a story, and the story is what I'm attracted to most.
Love it. I love it. So, I think one of the first things that comes to people's mind and what's happening is this unusual market we're in, right? This market of higher and elevated interest rates. I think this week they're right around 7.25, so they did jump up. And then also too, combined with this lack of inventory, is just creating a very unique market. And would love to hear your thoughts on that and what you're seeing out there, Ryan.
Yeah, it is a really weird market. And I remember in January when so many people were predicting that rates would be going down. And, there were so many voices that were saying either they would start to go down mid-year or they'd be 5.5% already. And yet here we are. And so I'd say that our market, it does feel strange because we're having really, really low volume. And so on the buy side, buyers are struggling to afford with historically high prices and 7% rates. And then sellers are, have really backed off. In the region in Sacramento, we've had almost 7,000 fewer new listings so far this year. And compared to last year. And I think by the time the year is up, it might reach about 10,000 fewer new listings compared to last year. And so it's been mind blowing. It's like we have a market where buyers are sitting and sellers are sitting, and so it's actually made for a really competitive environment. It's almost like low demand meeting low supply, and they're duking it out. And so it's a strange market. I was just talking to someone, an agent who's been around since the 70s, and he said exactly what I've been saying, that we've not had a market like this before. We really haven't. And, so here we are, sort of watching, I think, every step and what comes next.
Yeah, I've been in it since '02, so I kind of got in right before interest rates plummet dove and then created that '04, '05 market, and then through the '08, '09 market. And I was like, okay, I've been through '08, '09 before. This is nothing, right? And it's definitely a different market, a different feeling. And it's kind of like, I always get the question, well, what's the market going to do? And and I'm sure you do that. And my first thing is, well, my crystal ball is in the shop, right? So
Oh
that's
yeah.
first, and then just go into just like you said. I think data is so important because there's no fighting it. It's just I let the data do the heavy lifting, if you would, right? This is what's happening. This is what we're seeing. Here's what our inventory levels are. And for me, when I advise people on whether it's purchasing or they're selling and purchasing, I figure there's two pieces that are important. Is one, and first and foremost, does it make financial sense, right? I've been house poor before. I didn't like it. I don't ever want anybody to be house poor. And then two, if it improves their living situation. And what it seems is it's economics, supply and demand, very simple, right? And there's still enough of a supply that's kind of outweighing enough of a demand that's outweighing the supply. And that's why we're sitting in this competitive market.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and people have to consider their lifestyle. It's never just about geeky price metrics and all the stats we can quote. You have to analyze your life. Does it make sense right now, financially? Does it make sense for the lifestyle? But yeah, it's a strange dynamic in that we're missing thousands of listings this year. At any given time, we would have a couple thousand more at least active listings, and so buyers have fewer options, but there's also fewer buyers, and so um, interesting dynamic for sure. Yeah.
What do you see? So what do you see? And again, I'm not gonna, like I said, your crystal ball is broken. And what are your thoughts around, say, the tail end of this year, historically, what's happened, and then also too your thoughts around, because I always look at this place where, okay, if rates go down to here, there's no real right answer because it's all hypothetical. What's the point at where you bring a bunch of buyers off the market, it gets even more competitive than it is? I don't know. Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, so I think that we have to concede that we're in uncharted territory and nobody knows the future exactly. For the rest of this year, we should see the market soften at the least because that's what happens for the second half of the year. That's what I'm seeing in a lot of the statistics. Prices have been a little weird. Normally they peak in June, and it looks like maybe they've peaked in July instead, and so that's something that we'll watch. But a lot of metrics have started to show seasonal slowing, and so I'm not surprised over that. But I think the rest of this year, it really hinges on what happens with rates. And so if rates shoot up, that really takes some demand out of the market. We're poised to have more of a dull fall season, right? But if rates kind of stay where they are, then it's pretty competitive right now. As long as you're priced right, there's not an oversupply of listings, but so it could be a competitive environment for the fall. But I think that the future, feels like a big guess in some ways, and people ask that all the time. Well, what's going to happen? And then I often say, well, what's Bitcoin going to be worth in 1 year from now? Or who's going to win the 2024 presidential election, right? We won't get into politics, but like there's all these basic questions that we don't know the answers to. And I think in real estate, something is very true there. You have your doom and gloom side who are like everything's going to crash, and you say something long enough, maybe you'll be right eventually, but it's just sort of like that narrative that here's where rates are going to be, and I think almost everyone has been proven to be false on that. And so there's this real humility where we watch the market and we have to wait and see what happens. But what we know is true right now is that it's subdued because of affordability issues, but it's also really competitive. And both of these things are holding hands. And, I wish that we had a normal supply of listings. I'm on team. I want the market to be more affordable so more people can participate. I think that would be really healthy. But I think what's happened with subdued supply is that it's put more pressure on prices to not go down so much. And so you look at our prices, most like the median, the average, and such, they're down about 5 to 6% from the very peak in May 2022. But when you look at last year or like in December, I mean, prices just tanked for the second half of last year. And then now we've had the spring rebound, and you're going, okay, well, we're not down that much. Not sure that's totally healthy, but that's sort of the dynamic at hand. But I'd say for the future ahead, to expect for low supply and low volume unless something happens to change affordability. Okay, because buyers need affordability in order to run to the market and purchase, but so do sellers if they're going to sell that replacement home. Okay, now nationally about 40% of all homes don't have a mortgage. Technically those, owners can list their homes, no problem, but that hasn't sort of swayed the stats, and so we can't bank on that. What the vast bulk of the market is mortgaged, and so is financed, and so until we see a release and more people can participate, I would say to expect to see what we're seeing right now with more of a subdued volume levels.
You mentioned something there too. Is I think it's really important as well for the audience to understand this. Is when I look at national news, right? It feels to me that the headlines sell, right? Oh my gosh, foreclosures inched up or doubled this month. Okay, so it went from zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.4, right? Or this or that. So that seems like the headlines are really what sells. And talk to the importance of not necessarily national news, because national is going to be much different than say a local market, right? I mean, I watch you talk about also, for anyone who hasn't gone to his blog, he has the best blog out there. So it's sacramentoappraisalblog.com. Just search Ryan Lundquist. I'll put that in the link. But you talk about it often in your blog about being in tune with the local market versus hearing all the headlines in the national, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's sort of like, taking the temperature, nationally versus locally. Like today, it's going to be 109 degrees in Sacramento. It doesn't matter if it's 73 degrees somewhere else. The only thing that matters is it's blazing freaking hot and I'm staying inside. My dog's probably not going to get walked today, right? And so I think that that's the real key, that we have to recognize that there's a similarity in a lot of markets right now across the country, okay? But there are some that are experiencing a sharper change. And so Austin, is experiencing a sharper change than a lot of markets. Now, frankly, Sacramento, Boise, Phoenix, Austin, they've been kind of on the list of sharper change. But, right now, Austin is experiencing an uptick in inventory that's unlike what's going on in Sacramento. And so we have to look to the local trend to understand what's going on here. It's that whole weather thing. And I'm feeling it today, Jake.
Oh yeah, I just actually came out from inside. Usually, a lot of times I'll try and stay inside, especially when it's hot. But I went to a lunch appointment and it was blazing. So, 100% smart man right here. See, he's smart on all fronts. The data, the staying inside. So, question for you. You go on a lot of these and you kind of talk, kind of how people, they ask you questions. What are some things that you like in the appraisal world that maybe like you want to talk on that maybe most people don't ask about? I mean, what are you seeing, or does some things that stand out to you? You have a great commentary on your blog there. Anything you want to talk about?
In the appraisal world or the market world, I think we would probably put people to sleep if I talk about the appraisal profession. So nobody likes to talk about that. Yeah, in the market. So I just think one of the things that we often don't talk about is the market that is happening. And so we can say that there's about 6,000 missing sales this year, and that's really glaring. It's really really down volumes down about 37% compared to where it is normally before 2020. Okay, but I think that one of the things that we have to also watch is that there's been about 10,000 sales that have happened in the region this year, and so it's sort of like one of those dynamics where what's missing versus what's happening. I think we have to hold both of them together if we want a good picture of the market. And so that's what I'm seeing on in appraisals when I'm doing appraisals. One of the struggles right now is there's not that many sales. If we're missing almost 40% of sales, that shows up in neighborhoods. And so you might not have, 10 sales to choose from. There might be less. And so it's sort of that thing. Do I go out further, or do I go back further in time and say, how has the market changed since this last summer and such? And so I think a lot of appraisers have maybe, had the finger pointed and say, why are appraisers using such old comps? I'm like, well, because there aren't that many. And so I can use something that's older and then figure out how the market has changed. And so it's interesting out there because we talk about all the market dynamics and change, but that really shows up with, I think, real estate agents or appraisers or loan officers, trying to value a property. There's not that much data.
Yeah, that's interesting. You talk about that too, is because I've seen a lot on the appraisers and the appraisals just in general. You have a you can mark declining market and adjust certain ways to that, and then appreciating market and things like that. What kind of market are we marking these days, or is it again different for each pocket? I mean,
Yeah, so it could be different depending on the neighborhood and price range. I've been marking stable in a lot of my reports to say that overall prices are stable, but there's been some upward pressure, and now we're getting some pressure relief as the market changes. I haven't agreed, I think, with some appraisers who have been marking declining for the past 2 quarters because I'm kind of like, well, how did the median price grow so much, and how did all these price metrics grow so much if the market's persisting to decline, right? And so, but I don't want to get too technical, but there's not real definitions there for what constitutes a declining trend or a stable or an increasing one. I haven't viewed it as proper to say declining, but I can understand when a colleague might say, I think we're in a declining cycle. I think we are still in a declining cycle. I just haven't looked at the past 6 months with, prices are declining. Okay. But it does become important. Citibank just released a document, I think it was this week, and basically, if appraisers mark declining in the reports, the borrower has to qualify for about 5% more. And so, this can affect, a borrower's ability to qualify. And it does matter when I think banks recognize areas that they would think of as declining. But so something that's going to, I think, be hit and miss by appraisal. But no matter what an appraiser does, I just say support the trend that you say exists. If you say it's increasing or stable or declining, I just want to be able to read the appraisal report and go, yeah, I get it. That makes total sense. I will say one thing, it's not always increasing. Sometimes people in real estate are like, it's always good. And like the second half of last year, I mean, hardcore declines. I was checking that declining box, in every single appraisal report because that was the blatant trend. It was just so obvious in every way. And so, but yeah, right now I've been kind of more hovering around stable to talking about there's some upward pressure though. Sometimes I've marked increasing, but we've sort of, gone up for the spring, and then we're cresting, and then we should go down in a normal year for and through December. And so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting too because we follow that trend, and 2021 bucked that trend in a big way, and really the reason was the interest rate. So I appreciate you, man. Any final thoughts you have around the market, or thoughts, wise words from yourself?
Gosh, wisdom on the spot. I don't know if I have any wisdom on the spot, but I will say the market is always moving. I think that's what makes real estate exciting. Real estate advice has a shelf life because the market trend is consistently changing. And so that's why, I can't or you can't put out the end all content that applies to every market because the market's not always the same.
Very smart words. I like that. The real estate advice has a shelf. So that's awesome. So as always, Ryan Lundquist, SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com. His name is spelled, and again, I'll have the links here in my YouTube video. Ryan, Lundquist. He is incredible. He is the statistician, best one I've ever met, and he is an amazing appraiser. And if you need your house appraised, you can also look him up for that. So cheers. Thank you so much. And as always, if you like the content, please subscribe, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate you.